because human beings are human beings. And I always believe that they're the best creation of God, and God cannot be wrong, right? So therefore, whether you're managing them in the government sector or you're managing them in the private sector, right? The common denomination factor remains the same. Having said that, in terms of policies, in terms of processes, in terms of structured programs, in terms of protocols, right? Learned a lot from the government. In terms of accountability, right? In terms of dedication.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Value Seller Talks with Deepak Bajaj, where we connect with the industry leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs to explore their incredible journey, experiences, and insights into ever-evolving business landscape. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with a true giant in the telecommunication world, Dr. Sushil Kumar Chaturvedi. So Dr. Sushil is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Ascent Telecom Infrastructure Private Limited, a pioneer in the global telecom space. With an illustrative experience of more than 4 decades, he has been at the forefront of privatization in India, introduced triple play services in the USA, and lead the digitization of telecom networks across Africa. His expertise in both government and private sector, coupled with his strategic leadership in multinational corporations, has set him apart as a transformational figure in the telecom industry. Dr. Sushil has received numerous accolades, including the prestigious President's Medal for Distinguished Telecom Services, and was recently named CEO of the Year 2024 at the Business Innovation Conferences in Bangalore. In today's episode, we will uncover his remarkable journey, learn from his vast experiences, and explore how he continues to shape the telecom industry on a global scale. So, welcome once again, Dr. Sushil.
Thank you, Deepak. Thanks for those kind words.
You deserve a lot, and we just try to keep it as short as our best capabilities. But yes, thank you for bringing a revolution in the telecommunication industry. So, Dr. Sushil, we know the list of your achievement is vast and obviously it's unmatchable, but we love to know you as a person first.
Well, Deepak, I'm really indebted to my parents and thankful to the God Almighty for giving me this blessing of this wonderful life that I have been able to lead all these years. See, we are basically, as the name suggests to you, we belong to the clan of Mathur Chaturvedis and originated from Mathura, the land of Lord Krishna. And from there on, my birthplace actually is Varanasi, the holy city of Lord Shiva. Our ancestral village is in UP, very close to Ayodhya, and that's the association with Lord Shri Ram. Now, from there, as my father was in government service, we moved on to the city of Nawabs, which is Bhopal, wherein my primary and secondary schooling happened, and that was in Campion School. It was a Jesuit school. I learned a lot of moral lessons there as well, which were part of our curriculum those days. Having successfully completed the secondary school education there from Campion School, Bhopal, went on to pursue my engineering in, again, the Karmsthali of Lord Krishna, which is NIT Kurukshetra. And had a wonderful time in Kurukshetra. Those days, the engineering college curriculum used to be for 5 years. And I chose a branch, electronics and telecommunications engineering. Thankfully, I was honored with a gold medal at the end of the program. Having done that, uh, then decided to do something different, because that was one of my always an objective, to do something different. And therefore, instead of pursuing the stereotype jobs that were on offer at that time in the field of electronics and telecommunications, I joined Hindustan Aeronautics Limited in Hyderabad as an avionics design engineer. And thankfully, when I was with HAL, I was the youngest engineer in the project team, which actually developed a vector cardiogram for the joint Indo-Soviet cosmonaut flight, which happened in 1984. And it was a very interesting experiment wherein the Indian philosophy was to be tested in space under zero gravity conditions. So, like normally people are aware about the electrocardiogram, the ECG, right? Now,
Right.
this was a vector cardiogram which actually measured the position of the heart along the three axes, X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Whereas in ECG, it's only X and Y. So it's a planar. Here it was a three-dimensional positioning of the heart. The experiment that our wing commander Rakesh Sharma, along with his Russian counterpart, was supposed to conduct in space was that when you go in space under zero gravity, this beautiful creation by God, the human body, the heart automatically tries to counter the pressure.
Mm.
Because normally when you're within the gravitational zone, the heart, your blood, when it pumps the blood, right? The very location of the heart is such in the human body that it has to make less effort to pump the blood down. It goes by the gravity. But imagine a situation in zero gravity condition, right? The heart will have to do much larger work, for doing that. And for that, the heart beautifully aligns itself. It actually orients itself by changing its position. Now, the experiment was that if you perform yoga under zero gravity, the heart will not have to undergo that much of orientation change. And this was supposed to be confirmed because the Russians were actually masters mathematicians. They wanted a confirmation. And
Mm.
therefore, the vector cardiogram was supposed to help by taking observation on the ground, then taking observation before yoga under zero gravity, and then after yoga in zero gravity. The experiment was very, very successful. And I also had the honor of sharing the room with our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi when she asked that famous question that how does India look like from space? And Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma answered, all of us know that, Sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamara. So that was quite an interesting, kind of a journey on a personal front. Uh, as I grew up, I developed some hobbies as well, which eventually matured. So I was very fascinated by stamps, actually, in the beginning. Subsequently, because of my various assignments, when I rubbed shoulders with international counterparts, right, also developed interest in coins. So that I have been continuously pursuing, and so I am an avid philatelist as well as a numismatist. At the same time, I love photography because I believe that this human form of life which God has given us, it's very precious, and therefore one should try and document every minute of it, because there's no rewind button in life, right? It's only those memories that you can create, through the lens, which eventually, when you look in hindsight, you can probably feel happy about it and relive that life and those moments. So clearly, these hobbies have been a great help for me, in fact, in bringing out the work-life balance. Because normally, what happens that as I started my career, I started as a class one officer as an ITS in Government of India after clearing UPSC services exam while working in HAL. And then clearly from there on, all the responsibilities were very high level responsibilities as such. But then this hobby actually helps me a lot, in keeping me engaged as such beyond the office and also refreshing me as well.
That's a very, very important message which you have given, especially the people in the corporate. They believe that, okay, one part of the life, the only part of the life is to, work 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 nowadays. But yes, hobbies are your fuel to keep it moving, as well as thanks for reminding me personally the right golden word which was shared by Vijay Rakesh Sharma. So, and I must feel that how much energy at that time in that room, as well as what type of proud moment that each and every individual will be having at that time.
Yes, yes, it was really a very proud moment for our country as well. And I must make a mention here of my family. I have a lovely wife who supports me all along. She has stood by me with the thick and thin, and I'm really proud of her. And I have two children, my daughter is a doctor, married to another doctor, my son-in-law. Both of them are abroad right now. And my son is an engineer from computer science, and initially having a stint working with a multinational. He then decided to go on his own, and today he has his own company. He's a founder, CEO of a platform which is into edtech.
Wow, that's again the entrepreneurship journey and the creativity. They all go hand in hand. So definitely, your guidance and handholding is always required for them. Great. Thank you for bringing that up. So focus on the part like you had been had a remarkable career spanning over 40 years in the telecom industry. So leading both in national and international organizations. So could you walk us through your journey and what initially drew you to the telecom sector?
So Deepak, that's actually very, very interesting. In fact, I never ever thought during my college career that I would be, joining the telecom industry as such. But then there was one event which was actually a life-changing event, which prompted me that I need to get into this area and try to do something which can actually improve and help people. And therefore, so basically, just to mention that incident, so I was at that time in HAL, Hyderabad. Some of you might still be remembering that the Union Carbide incident which happened in Bhopal in 1984. It was really a holocaust, basically. Millions of people died overnight because of choking, right? They really didn't know what had hit them. And I was in Hyderabad at that time. Now you can imagine that when the news came in of this, all my family and the whole ecosystem of relatives, friends was in Bhopal. And I was anxious to know their well being. But there was no way. There was a complete communication breakdown. And my boss in HAL, Wing Commander Pandey, I remember him very fondly. He took me in his car to the nearest telephone exchange in Hyderabad. And then he said that I will try and get you connected over the telephone. But you will not believe that when I went there, and despite the clout that Wing Commander Pandey had, they told me that in the wait list of a lightning call, in those days there used to be different kind of calls, ordinary call, urgent call, lightning call. Lightning was the fastest. They said in the waiting list of lightning call, your number is 37.
Mhm.
Now imagine. And in that telephone exchange, I found that there was hardly any place even to step around because there were families who had, of course, their next of kins, there in Bhopal, who were trying somehow to connect. It was really, really a very sad situation. And that was the time when I thought that, look, something should be done. You can't have a blackout of connectivity as such, communication blackout, right? In such kind of a crisis. And then I discussed with some of my colleagues, and then I was told that through UPSC exam, which of course is a tough exam, but then you can become an Indian Telecom Service Officer, right? And there you'll be in a position to take decisions and do something which could be changing, life changing for people. So that was the event, and then I engaged myself, gave the exam, thankfully cleared it with flying colors. And then I was given an option because the top guys were given an option to choose. So I was given an option to either choose railways or telecom. And anyway, it was my conscious choice of telecom. So I chose telecom and went into telecom. And thankfully, I was given my first posting to lead Bhopal telephones. So I was posted there. So that was, of course, the historical background getting into telecom. But then again, you see, on joining, I found that in those days, the generation now, it might be something very very difficult to digest. Getting a telephone, the wait list was averaging between 6 years to 12 years in the country.
True.
And I said, no, no, this is not done, right? We have to do something different, something such that this position changes, because telephone is not a luxury, it's a necessity. So as I joined there, erstwhile it used to be called Department of Telecom in those days. Then eventually it became Post and Telecom, and then it was further broken up into BSNL. So then I was with BSNL, and thankfully we did a lot of things there actually, which were like activities which changed the way telecom was being looked into. First and foremost objective was to improve the tele-density of the country, to make sure that access is provided to everybody and everywhere. That was the objective. And that's why, when we came to in the late 90s, right, we opened the doors for privatization. Thankfully, the government realized that the need of the hour is that we should have public-private partnership in this domain. So the doors for privatization were opened at that time. And that was a time which also coincided with my a special assignment which I had with the Indian Telecom Union. I was the telecom advisor to Indian Telecom International Telecom Union based in Geneva for 5 years, and they actually, looking at what I had done here in India, they actually gave me the charge of digitalizing the Southern African developing countries as such, because they were still kind of far far behind from where we were at that time. So that gave me an opportunity of traveling extensively in Africa, and I found that the people there were the most, I would say, honest people at heart and loving people. And thankfully, we were able to do a lot of revolutionary changes there to make sure that people are able to get communication access, and at the same time the challenge was to make it economically viable as well. So we were able to thankfully do that. And then coming back from there, when I came back to India after rubbing shoulders with a lot of telecom experts around the world, I felt that, look, the way, the speed at which we were moving here was not sufficient. And that was one of the key drivers of driving privatization in India. We had to do it fast, and we had to bring in technology as such. So those were the drivers which led to privatization. Today, thankfully, we have a situation where you can actually, you know, get a phone in a few minutes if you want to, right? And the access is so easy. But those good old days, which we have seen, right, in that time, it was really really a nightmare for people first to get the telephone, Secondly, if at all they wanted to connect, let's say from one city to another city, right? They had to go through a manual process where somebody would answer your call and then connect you physically, in the telephone exchange through wires. Then we introduced the STD facility. Then we introduced ISD facility for international dialing. Then we also introduced the STD public call offices, so that anybody, even if he was not owning that facility as such, right? You could go to a public call office and make STD call, right? Which was also providing employment to people who were manning it. A lot of, and we made it kind of mandatory that, wherever we open these, a percentage quota was fixed for disabled or differently abled people. So that those were the things that we tried to do in those times, to try and make communications, easily and economically available.
You reminded me of all those days because we have also seen that part. Like obviously the next generation for them they have never thought about in their even in their dreams. But yes, getting the telephone, calling the people, getting that connected, and yes, to get that the wireline connections were the only way of communication, and privatization is definitely needed. So thanks for taking that initiative because bringing that initiative and acceptance of bringing the privatization is also a big challenge when we talk about the bigger bureaucracies which is running, from last so many years. So breaking that challenge and bringing new is really innovation. Um, so having served in both government, as you rightly mentioned, a lot about the government part, the private, the public sector. So your roles were such as the director of BSNL as well as top level position in the private sector, which you have taken later in the latest term. So, which includes your current role of Group CEO at SN Telecom. So, how have you navigated the differences in the management styles, both in the public and the private sector, which is a why we always say is a north and south connection, and what operational challenges which you have experienced while handling these two sectors?
See, Deepak, personally, I believe that this is a myth where we say that the government working style is different, management style is different, or the private management style is different, and then very difficult to sit on judgment, right? That what is good there or what is good here. Personally, for me, at the end of the day, it's all about people management, right? Now, and for that matter, I believe that the government's functioning, the style of functioning there, the management style there, and the private style, I believe that there are a lot of good things in both, and it is complementary to each other. In fact, it's not a hurdle, and that was the reason why I was able to kind of successfully manage, and I normally call it as best of both worlds, right? The experience that I got, because human beings are human beings, and I always believe that they're the best creation of God, and God cannot be wrong, right? So therefore, whether you're managing them in the government sector or you're managing them in the private sector, right? The common denomination factor remains the same. Having said that, in terms of policies, in terms of processes, in terms of structured programs, in terms of protocols, right? Learned a lot from the government. In terms of accountability, right? In terms of dedication, learned a lot from the private sector. Now, just to mention here on that note, a small kind of incident. When I was heading the telephone department there in Bhopal, there was a VVIP visit, and VVIP was none other than our Prime Minister at that time, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. And I was interested as head of the telephone department to ensure that his communication setup is managed in a manner that there should not be any kind of a hiccup there. He was supposed to come to Bhopal, address a few meetings, and then he was supposed to stay in the governor house in Bhopal. The suite in which he was supposed to stay, it was my responsibility that the phone there worked flawlessly. And when these visits happen, what happens is that not many people would be aware about it. You don't use a normal telephone there. There's a special telephone which is used, it's called a Sikra phone. And the specialty of that phone is that when you speak into that phone, right, the voice is managed in such a way, it is scrambled, actually. The speech is scrambled. So that for safety and security purposes, nobody can overhear it, nor anybody can record it. And a direct line has to be established from this place directly to the PMO. Now, it so happened on that particular day that, we had done that, and I was just doing the last and final test, because you don't have to dial in that phone. You just pick up, it is answered directly by the PMO or the president's office, depending on, whoever is visiting. So I picked up the phone and somebody from the PMO answered, said, "Good morning, sir. I'm from the PMO. How can I help you?" I said, "Well, I'm just testing this." And by that time, the door opened. And I look back and I see Mr. Rajiv Gandhi and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi both walking in together. Now, I was a little perplexed at that time that, I should have done this a little earlier, right? So that their privacy was not this thing. But then look at their humility. He walked up to me, shook hands with me, and he said, "Thank you very much for setting this up." So you had these great opportunities, but then again, as I said, that these were experiences which actually we could get, while working in the government as such, which gave a lot of insights and which helped me later on in how to manage the situations. So I think we need to have good learnings and adoption from both government and private.
Thanks for you rightly said. It's a myth. Basically, it's a mindset, thought process. A right mindset with the best of both world can help the humans. Right, at the end of the day, the purpose is same: to serve the community, to serve the person, to get a flawless communication and connectivity. Thank you. And now, when we talk about the innovation, your name comes at the first. So, throughout your career, you have been known for pioneering innovations like the deployment of triple play services across geographies and the digitization of the telecom network in Africa, as you mentioned. So, how do you approach innovation, and what have been some of your most rewarding technological advancements which you want to share with us?
Well, see, innovation and differentiation is something which is today very much required for you to stay relevant. Most of the innovations that I have, kind of been involved with as such, although I would say that it is nothing individual there, it's all a teamwork, in fact, always. But then wherever we were able to kind of, innovate or do things differently as such, there was always a trigger for that. There was a need for that. There was something which was missing. There was always an endeavor that can we do this thing in a better way. So that actually, prompted that we need to raise the bar. We need to look at this thing. Can we simplify it? Can we do it in a better way? Right? Can we economize it? So those were the triggers actually. Now, just to name a couple of them, for example, again going back to my Department of Telecom days, in my very first posting, it was like a fresher coming there, and I saw that during the summer season when the temperature would touch 40 to 45 degrees, you would find a lineman climbing a pole The poles used to be made of metal. Now imagine, even if you want to touch it standing on the ground, it was very difficult. And you see that poor guy climbing up all up there, working on that pole, fixing your connection or whatever it is, right? Hanging in there for quite some time, and then taking all the risk. And a similar thing I noticed during the rainy season. It would be
Mm,
raining heavily. It was a big hazard actually, because the pole would become wet actually.
mm,
And in that situation, also, this lineman of ours would be climbing up like a monkey. There was no ladder, right? He would just climb up like a monkey, sit there without any kind of a support, do the work, and come down. And I asked myself that, in this age, when we are talking about so many advancements, to me, it looks preposterous, right? To subject a person to this kind of a work environment. So I went back to my boss, and I'm thankful to him. I said, "Sir, this is not done." He said, "Well, let me just remind you, the Indian Telegraph Act was enacted in 1865. Since then, things have been like this. So, young man, what is it that you are proposing?" I said, "Sir, this has to change. If you allow me, I would like to get rid of the polls." And he was like, almost at that time on the verge of his retirement, had put in all his life in the service. He looked at me from top to bottom. He said, "Sit down. You want to have a cup of tea?" I said, "Sir, I'm very, very confident. I just want your couple of minutes just to give me a patient hearing and give me your blessings. And I would like to prove it to you." And then from there on, we developed a very good rapport.
mm,
And he said, "Go ahead, let's do a pilot." So I went out basically, and then with my team, we worked out and we selected a particular area in the city of Bhopal. And then what we did was that we laid underground cables reaching to the houses as such. And we removed all the poles there as such. We converted the overhead network into underground network. That was the first city to have underground network, in fact. And then my general manager at that time, he was so happy with it. He called the telecom secretary. He invited the telecom minister, and in an open jeep, he took them around the city of Bhopal to show that you will not find a single pole. So that was like something that we did right, right in the beginning, because there was empathy. I always felt that why a human being should be, subjected to this kind of cruelty actually. Moving on, of course, as we moved up the ladder, right, we tried to improve the quality of service.
mm,
So earlier on, what used to happen that the quality of service was basically measured as a telecom circle. A telecom circle was synonymous with a state, geographic
mm,
state.
mm,
So it was always measured at that level, that for a particular state, right, what is the quality of service for telecom. But then I suggested that, look, when you're doing this, a lot of black sheep actually would not be discovered in this. In
mm,
districts, you might have a poor quality of service, but if you look at a state level, right, it will get camouflaged.
correct.
So I developed a system whereby we were monitoring the quality of service and profitability at a telephone exchange level. It was done for the first time, and that had a very positive impact. There were a lot of, you know, telephone exchanges which were discovered where the quality of service as well as the productivity was very, very low. And then special drive was taken by the department of identifying those, making teams to address those, So the impact basically was that overall, the quality of service and the productivity increased manifold. So that was as far as BSNL was concerned. Coming here, into this new journey as such, again, there were a lot of areas which we found had a scope for improvement. Just to talk about one for that matter, like we are providing as a TARCO to the telcos, we provide space, we provide power. Now, space is fine that you erect a tower and you provide space on that, that's fine, and you manage that. When it comes to providing power, this is the largest ticket item actually as time in terms of cost for a telco. 60% of the cost is in the power. Now we found that, given the grid situation in India, which is improving now, thankfully, you need to have three sources of backup power on a tower typically. One is the grid, of course, second is the battery, and third one is a diesel generator set. Because you need to have 24-hour connectivity, and therefore you need to have these backups. Now, what we found was that India is such a vast geography, and these telecom towers are scattered all over the place as such. There are a lot of difficult terrains. You have places like Jammu and Kashmir, which is basically, snow-clad, at least 3 to 4 months. Right? And then you have Assam and Northeast, in that area. Right? So a lot of difficult geographies. And to manage a 24-hour connectivity, clearly the grid situation was not the same in every state. There was a lot of dependency on the fossil fuel diesel. And that's where we thought that, look, we need to change this. And therefore, at Ascent Telecom, you'll be happy to know that we were the first company which decided that we will install solar on our telecom towers. Now, having a solar installation as a captive power plant is something else. But having a distributed solar arrangement, right, on every telecom tower site, it really was not an easy task. But we did that. Today, as we speak, 45% of our portfolio is green.
Major achievement.
And we are working towards that. Further, now we want to use green energy open access, right? Thankfully, as per the government policy. So that is one thing which I'm really feeling very, very proud of as such, reducing the dependency on fossil fuel, using clean fuel, green fuel as such. And then a similar situation like what I had encountered 3 decades ago in BSNL, I found that these technicians had to travel long distances. Sometimes, alarm would come in the night and he would have to go on a two-wheeler, maybe 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers in a very difficult terrain. I said, this is again something which needs to be addressed. So we then decided to go in for automation. And then we installed automation at all our telecom sites. We established a network operations center. Today, as we speak, all our towers in real time speak to our network operations center. The same has been made available on the mobile phone as well. And because it is fully automated, the turning on and off of the DG set, the air conditioner, the battery charge discharge, everything is fully automated. And therefore, there is no need for a technician to run in the middle of the night, to attend to alarm. Proactively, we can do it over the air.
So
And
yeah,
of course, I mean that's not the end because there's still a lot of scope for improvements actually, for innovation as such. But just mentioned a couple of them which were very satisfying, in fact.
these are the heavy tasks actually. So how to bring the performance and how to reduce the dependency so that the human life should not get impacted while fixing up these things is where the need of the hour. And definitely when you say 45% greener is not in the thought process of the most of the companies which you have already achieved.
Yeah, but as I said, for me, the trigger always has been that, you can always make a machine more efficient, right? But if you can simplify, if you can make life easier for human beings, that really touches my heart.
And as a group CEO of SN Telecom, innovation is one part, but definitely managing the cross-functional teams and ensuring the operational excellence is another thing. So how you address those challenges as well?
Well, Deepak, see what happens basically is that, for me, from day one, I have been, engaged in handling companies which had, either pan-India operations or working in different time zones, in the later periods when I was in US and all, uh, large geographies with people coming from very diverse cultures. And clearly, for me, it was a great learning exercise. And as we navigated through that, we discovered that human beings themselves do not know the potential that they have. And therefore, as a manager, it's important for you to get the best out of them. Now, coming back to Ascend for that matter, right? Now we have pan-India operations, in fact, and we have different kind of geographies, people coming from different cultures. India, is known for unity and diversity, right? You have different languages. uh, every 200 kilometers, the language changes, the food changes, right? The costume changes. Now, I'll just mention to you one very simple, innovation that we did. We had technicians across the country. Clearly, the language in which they were more proficient and comfortable was most of the time their mother tongue. Now, when they had to be engaged through our network operations center, the NOC, the alarm messages would go in English.
Mm.
What we did was we asked a software company to convert these alarms into regional dialects. So when an alarm would go to a technician, for example, in Tamil Nadu, it would go in Tamil. Somebody from Karnataka, he would receive it in Kannada, his own language. And we found that our efficiency improved significantly. The response time improved significantly. So much so that Ascend got a prestigious award on operations excellence as the best company in India.
So again, you're not leaving any expect to get connected with the human on the ground, or I should say the last mile, so that they feel more comfortable, more connected, and more responsible also. Mhm. And the real-time actions are what when they become accountable and responsible, then they are pursued to do the things on the real time. And
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I was sharing with you, my experience has been working in all geographies across the world, right? That irrespective of the background from where the human force comes from, right? They all have tremendous potential. So it's for us as managers to ensure that we get the best out of them. So it's all about teamwork at the end of the day. All these innovations, etc., differentiations were very successful because we engaged people. We made people to own up. And then obviously the drive came from the people themselves as such, and we were very successful in that.
Thanks for bringing that up, because very few people think from that angle, that how the person should get connected and how to make their life easy. And at the end of the day, it's the people who are managing the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was having a one question on the energy side, but I believe you have explained it very beautifully, especially on the energy challenges which tower cos and the MNOs or the operators are facing because of different circumstances, and energy always remain a prime factor which is the prime factor for that any TCO to shoot up. So
So now gone a step forward actually after doing this intervention, green energy intervention. Now, in fact, we have gone to the next step where we want to create a win-win actually scenario for our customer as well. So it's not only about like the efficiency that we bring in as such, and we reap the benefits of that. Now we've gone a step further, and now we are offering to our customers, wherein we are saying that okay, let's invest together and let's share the rewards together. So that's the next step that we are working on right now.
sharing models. Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect. Well, yeah, I'm pretty much sure it's a different avenue, and it is again giving a benefit, win-win-win, not win to the operator, win to the tower company, then the win to the people who are using it.
absolutely.
Um, as a telecom advisor to International Telecommunication Union and a consultant to global telecom bodies, you have played a pivotal role in shaping the telecom policies. So, how have these experiences influenced your approach to leadership in the industry, and what policy changes do you think is a necessary for the future?
So Deepak, I think this vivid experience that I got by working in different geographies, leading big organizations across the globe with a mindset that you need to innovate, you need to differentiate, you need to get the best out of the people that you're working with. That experience really is a golden experience, actually. And that actually has helped basically for me to kind of, shape up in a form wherein we can always concentrate on trying to things better. Good is not good enough for me, right? It can be better than that. And this experience I got, when I was working with the ITU, when I was working with the TCIL of the world, when I was working in the US, right? That there's always a scope out there, right? You can do something better, you can do something in a different way, and how to execute that. See, many a times I met many people who were very good at visualizing things, but I think the real key is in the execution. And this is what I learned actually working across this horizon as such with different organizations trying to bring about a change there, that even as an advisor, when my task was only basically to advise, right, I would get engaged with the teams to ensure that the execution also happens the manner it was envisaged, because then only you close the loop actually.
Mm.
So that was a great learning that happened over the years, which is actually helping now going in the future. From a policy perspective, see, the government thankfully is pro telecom because 6% of the GDP is contributed by telecom. In today's world, see, earlier, the priority for the government and the ask by the people used to be that first you get electricity in a village, for example, get a road in a village, get a potable water supply in the village. Today, people are okay even if it is not there, but they want a phone, right? So you see the importance now of communications as such, and especially during the COVID period, right? When everything came to a standstill, right? It was only telecom which was actually ensuring that we are able to maintain a business continuity and at the same time our daily tasks of entertainment or social networking, or getting grocery at our homes delivered, all those things continued unhindered. We were in a lockout, right? So that's the importance of telecom. Today, this phone that we have in our hand, right, does it all. Voice is only one of the things, right, on this phone now, right? You get into digital transactions, the banking, BFSI, all the activities as such. Your entertainment happens on the phone itself. It doubles up for your camera as well, right? You can take pictures on this. As social networking happens on the phone, right? So pretty much anything that you can think of, and now thankfully with AI and ML coming in, right, a lot really will happen, even much more than what is right now happening with this device. So therefore, from a policy perspective, it's extremely important that the government should step in and should regulate it in such a manner that the real benefits of technology are actually made available. Because when a new technology comes, I think we all are aware right now there's a debate going on regarding responsible AI, right? Now AI is kind of a I would say an animal which has been unleashed right now, okay, or for that matter the content that is available right, today on the various social media sites, etc. We need to ensure that for us as well as for our next generation, we regulate this in such a manner that the positives of that are made available, and unnecessarily they don't fall in the trap of some of the aberrations which are there, right, especially for children, right? Today, most of the parents kind of they give a phone to the children very early, or probably a tablet to them, for various reasons. But then if we are ensuring that what is served to them on the device is something which is for their betterment.
So,
So that is extremely important. And the scope is kind of really, really, really unlimited. What all can happen. We saw, during the COVID period and then subsequently adoption of telemedicine, teleeducation, right? Now, these things earlier, what people were not very glued on to this, but then they realized that how helpful it can be. Through teleeducation, you can reach rural areas, where good schools are not there, but then provide them the best content. Through telemedicine, you can reach out to the primary health centers in the villages, right? Provide them the best of medicinal advice. A test can be conducted there, sent, over the phone itself, and you can get a prescription. So a lot can happen. And with AI now coming in, with the present generation that we have of technology, which is 5G, with a minimal and I would say the high speeds that we are getting now as such, a lot of use cases are coming up, and they are basically going to improve the efficiency. They are going to improve the quality of life as such. Incidentally, I was in my college. I could reach there after 44 years of passing out. So there was a celebration there happening, for reconnecting the whole batch. And there in one of the podcasts, so one of our professors came in, and he said that, we would like to have a podcast, for you, basically, that, how you see the college, shaping you up, right? And then one of the students, right, who was asking question, he said, "Ki in telecom, what is the future?" So I said, "Well, you have seen 2G, you have seen 3G, you have seen 4G, now we are in 5G. Talks of 6G are going on. but ultimately you have to reach Shivji, and there's a lot that can happen till that time. So that's where we are. It's very exciting times, in fact, as far as telecom is concerned. And the good part is that it is only improving the quality of life of people, providing a lot of efficiency into many processes that were happening earlier, which were manual in nature, with the automation coming in most of the walks of life. People are talking about driverless cars, robotic surgery, you name them, right?
Right. Definitely, that's you answered one part of my next question as well, where I am also going to ask you how do you see the future of the telecom, and especially how do you foresee the role of the technology evolving in the emerging markets like India, Africa, and Southeast Asia, where you have contributed a lot in their digitization journey.
So thankfully, India uh, is in a very, very promising state right now as far as telecom is concerned. See, we grew up actually with a large dependency for technology in the telecom sector by importing it. Now, as we speak, we feel very proud, and even we had not imagined that in earlier phases. Today, we have a homegrown stack of 4G, which is live and working, being rolled out by BSNL. And this homegrown stack of 4G that we have developed is very efficient, very economical. There are 41 countries in the world who have signed up for this technology. And thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister, with the PLI scheme on manufacturing, the Made in India, Make in India initiative that has been taken, we are soon going to become a net exporter of telecom technology. Today, the largest number of iPhones are being manufactured in India. And as we move ahead, India will actually take a center stage because the program that is there, very ambitious program for establishing data centers. Right now, we're just dependent on the developed countries. The data centers were housed there only. The ambitious program that government has undertaken here, you will find a lot of data centers being established in India as well. So on the technology front, India is doing fantastically well. And as I said, that there are a lot of countries, developing countries, or underdeveloped countries for that matter, who are now looking at India because our technology is affordable, our technology is reliable. So that's one part. Coming to Africa, they've also come a long way, in fact, but still, kind of, they need to bridge the gap. There's a great tele-density gap there between the cities versus the rural areas. So that has to be bridged, there. They are still facing a lot of challenges in terms of the regular power supplies as such to the equipment. They're still importing a lot of equipment, from the developed countries as such. But then what we are seeing basically is that with India now, coming up in that field, we'll be able to make a big difference to the African continent as such in bringing them at par, with the developed countries as such. Southeast Asia on its own have done very well, in fact, especially some of the countries have done very well there. The only challenge there was that they were lacking regulation, actually.
Mm.
And because of the regulation not being in place, the kind of growth that was required did not happen at that pace. But thankfully, in the last 2, 3 years, they've realized that. And countries like Malaysia, who have taken the lead now, uh, they're calling themselves as a digital tiger now, in fact. And then Indonesia is fast catching up for that matter. Philippines is now catching up. These Southeast Asian countries are also now they are kind of moving very, very fast in that domain. But the good news basically is that for the African continent, for Southeast Asian countries and all, India is now the favored partner as far as telecom is concerned. So that is something very heartening.
Mhm. That's a very proud moment because whatever the policies and Make in India concept and that initiative is actually making us a center of global attraction. So yes, and always the positive vibes are coming from our neighboring countries as well as the regions that you mentioned rightly. Uh, so Dr. Sushil, you have received numerous awards, including the President's Medal, and have been recognized as the CEO of the Year multiple times. So, what do these accolades mean to you, and how do you maintain the drive to keep achieving in such a competitive and rapidly evolving industry?
Well, Deepak, I think these recognitions. I'm thankful and grateful actually for the forums and these agencies who have done a painful research and then they have recognized. See, like for a machine, you need lubricant, right, to run it more efficiently, right? Mm. Similarly, for me, these accolades, these recognitions, basically, they act as fuel. So they actually acknowledge that A, what you did was right. B, there's so much to do, you know, and therefore keep going. So fortunately, as you keep getting these, accolades and acknowledgements of good work from around the world, it actually motivates you, you know, to walk the extra mile. So I think that has been a very, very, I would say, a good journey that way. That uh, you feel very satisfied, right? That yes, you were able to bring a difference somewhere. You were able to bring a smile on somebody's face, and also recognizing at the same time that there is so much to do. I often quote, you know, one of my ideas, Che Guevara, right? That when he was finally ambushed and he was asked at that point of time, the famous liberation hero, he was asked at that time that what would be your last wish? He said, so little done, so much to do. So I think that actually keeps you driving, going ahead and trying to bring about a difference.
Like you said, so much to do. Yes. Everything there. I also believe that one solution creates more problem, and then definitely more problem needs more solutions, and that's the life.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing and thanks for making yourself a self motivated. So people look for the motivation from the outside world, but when you look inside and you know which direction you have to go, so that's sufficient and propel you for the longer term and the longer have a longer vision.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak, for the kind words.
So as we look ahead, what are your strategic goals for Ascent Telecom and how do you plan to continue leading the company through the next phase of growth, especially with the evolving landscape of 5G? And nowadays, the 6G is also in discussion on a very higher level.
So basically, see, earlier, Ascend and for that matter, our, other peers basically were a Tarco. Now we have consciously looking at the evolving ecosystem and in order to meet the expectations, ever growing expectation of our customers, we have transformed ourselves into a digital infraco instead of a TAR. Now, when you say digital infraco, which means you are now catering to digital infrastructure, And digital infrastructure actually encompasses not just providing a tower for the radio stations as such, but at the same time, it also now helps you to cater for a lot of adjacencies along with that, which come with the technology. With the low latency of, for example, 5G, a lot of IoTs are getting installed as such, right? Which is bringing in one of the use cases, your home automation, for example, right? Your refrigerator can talk to you, your microwave can talk to you, right? You can, manage your curtains, manage your lightings, right? Remotely, as you enter your house, or the air conditioner for that matter. So that's one area that we are addressing. Then the spectrum that is being made available for these new technologies as such is in the higher frequency bands, which is actually causing a lot of attenuation of the signal. And therefore, the availability of the service, especially in basements, in multi-story buildings, high-rise buildings, etc., etc., is causing a challenge. So we are now addressing that by in-building solutions. So we are providing that to improve the access there. Then we are also in the process of establishing micro data centers. Now these are also called as edge data centers because the kind of decision making that needs to be now made in real time. Now that basically requires a lot of data processing right where the place of action is. Therefore, you can't wait for the signal to travel to a data center somewhere in the US, right? And then get back from there. You need to have it right at that place. So these are called edge data centers. These are going to be co-located with the towers. We already have the space, we already have the connectivity there, right? We have the security, the access. So we're going to co-locate those there. So we are actually now looking at bringing in all these new lines of business under the same umbrella as such, under the digital infrastructure. And this, we believe, can actually help us in becoming the most preferred partner for our customers, providing them one-stop shop solution.
Right.
That's the goal.
Exactly. One-stop shop gives a comfort feeling to your end client, as well as when you're talking and connecting all the dots together to serve them and their end subscribers. That's what everyone is looking at. Right. Indoor is the definitely you rightly mentioned as the spectrum goes more higher and higher, definitely the penetration losses will be more, and the indoor experience is something which all the where the real ARPU lies into.
Right.
Thanks for bringing that up. And in the interest of time, I would like to take the last question, especially for those who are looking to make a mark in the telecom industry, particularly in the leadership space and the roles. So, what advice would you give to the next generation of telecom professionals?
See, my first and foremost, message to them will be this is the most exciting field which one should try and get into. You'll get a lot of satisfaction because there's so much scope, right, for bringing in innovation here. Uh, Working on the latest things that can happen, which earlier used to be probably part of the fiction movies only, right? Which are now some of them have become a reality already, right? And they can become a part of a team which can bring many of those things into reality, which we thought were like fantasies actually earlier. So it's a very exciting field, in fact, and the best part is that it's a very diversified field. When you talk about many other fields, right, they are very specialized. Telecom is a very diversified field. Today, anything and everything that we do, starting from getting up in the morning, right, looking at the weather, looking at the traffic forecast, right, planning your day, right, everything actually is under the telecom gamut as such. Somewhere or the other, right, there's telecom, right, which comes into play. So it's a very diversified field, very exciting field, This is one field where before one technology matures, you have the other one knocking on your door, right? We have not yet completed the ubiquitous coverage of 5G in the country, and 6G is knocking on your door. So if you have that element of thrill, you have that element of doing experimentation, you have that element of doing innovation, right? This is the field in which you should be. Because earlier there used to be a very thin line between IT and telecom, which has now actually, faded away, in fact. Now it's pretty much merged into this because all the new technology that we are talking about with AI, with machine learning, with VR, all these things that are coming in, right? The IT and telecom have actually merged, in fact. So it opens up a plethora of opportunities, especially for the young generation now, to get into this field, right? And the best part is that they will have a very fulfilling journey in this field. They'll be proud of it.
So, thanks for bringing in. Definitely, yes. So now the IT and computer electronics or telecom is not, it's the ICT now. So which is and now and with a new flavor of AI coming into this thing, definitely the opportunities and the possibilities are huge. The only thing is the person has to open their mind and see what can be solved.
Very truly, yes.
So thank you, Dr. Sushil, for sharing your incredible journey, insights, and wisdom with us today. So your contribution to the telecom industry is truly inspiring, and we are honored to have had the opportunity to hear about your experiences and vision for the future.
Thanks, Deepak. I think the pleasure is mutual. And I would like to put on record my appreciation for making this platform where you are trying to bring to people, right? Sharing of the experiences. And I believe that this will be go a great way, actually, a long way, in fact, for people to learn, people to share as such their experiences, and there'll be a lot of good things which eventually people will be able to take away from this. So it's a great platform that you have created. All the best to you in this endeavor. May you excel. God bless you.
Thank you so much. And definitely, as you rightly mentioned, uh, what we need is both the guidance and the blessing because we have already started. And obviously, we are approaching 50th episode very soon. And
Wow.
yes, and yeah, and that's what coming from the same industry, understanding what we are doing. It's someone's responsibility to come and bring that message to the world. And that someone, why shouldn't it should be me? So
Very good.
thank you for your time and thank you for sharing all the experiences. Especially, like when we started about the golden words of Mr. Rajesh Sharma and with the Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara, it's really feel and I was still remembering these things and having a goosebump. So thank you for your prestigious award which you have been awarded, and yes, the guidance which you have given to the world through your innovations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All the
Thank you.
best.